From the field to the uprights, this is Laces Out, the ultimate deep dive into college football special teams. I'm your host, Ryan Jones, former Cincinnati Bearcat kicker and NFL prospect. And every week, we break down the kicks, punts, returns, and hidden gems that win games. If you live for the sound of the ball flying off the tee, you're in the right place. Laces Out starts now.
Laces Out!
Welcome to episode 2 of the Laces Out podcast. Today, it's all about Cincinnati Bearcats. I'm fired up for my guest today. He comes from the land down under, grew up in a cherry farm, and he was an excellent Aussie rules football player. He made the transition to the States to pursue American football at the University of Cincinnati. We were teammates there for a couple seasons. I'm excited to welcome my guy, James Smith, today to episode 2 of the Laces Out podcast.
What's going on, Ryan? Appreciate you having me on. Paul, good to see you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. I'm excited about this one, Jimmy. Just to be on a, like we were talking about kind of pre-show, just talk about the glory days about, college football, how it was at Cincinnati for, we were teammates for 3 years and everything. And then you had 2 more years after me, but, reliving the glory days, talking about a little about special teams, about your journey. I know you started with Aussie rules football, right? So let's kind of talk through that. Tell us about how you got into the game, what that was like playing that growing up, some of the things that you took away from that helped you transition into college football, American football anyways. And then, even talking a little bit, about Pro Kick. How did that help you out in your journey and everything?
Yeah, so most young guys in Australia grow up playing Australian rules football in the winter or cricket in the summer sort of thing. So they're like your main 2 sports basically. And I sort of grew up, I actually played soccer a little bit earlier on and then transitioned to Australian rules football when it became contact based. I was always a pretty tall kid, but never heavy or anything like that. But Australian rules football, super athletic game, 18 players per side, lots of running and just kicking dominant base. So that's sort of like where the whole transition to punting in the States and playing for the University of Cincinnati sort of came in. So I love playing Aussie rules football growing up. Was coached by my dad early on and then moved into like the senior ranks of stuff. And it's a big culture thing back home, like Australian rules football, like the team aspect, with those guys a couple of times a week for training and then on Saturdays for game day, and you just develop a camaraderie and there's a big a club atmosphere and it's really addictive. And then I sort of didn't really go as far as I would have liked with that back home, and through mutual contacts that I'd met through Australian rules football, I sort of knew of a couple of guys that had sort of made the trip over to the States to pursue like punting and college football. And I originally put my name down to not be a punter, like to try go over for another position. So I tried like tight end and linebacker, like just as a joke, not as a joke, but like that was what I put down on like my little survey sort of thing. And as soon as I got there, he's like, yeah, there's no way you're going over as one of those because everyone that comes out of high school in the States wants to be those 2. And I'm like, well, that probably makes a little bit of sense. And he's like, hey, you kick the ball. So, and then I kicked the ball a few times in front of Nathan Chapman and John Smith, the coaches of Pro Kick Australia. So I went down for a bit of a tryout and they said, look, you've got a Division One leg. There's no question about it, but you've got to give up everything right now and come down and move to Melbourne and train with us and we'll get you ready to go over. And I was like, give up everything, like no more Australian rules football. I had a pretty good job out of high school. I was doing agronomy sales and stuff. I was really enjoying that and sort of developing a little bit of a career. And I was like, I'm not really sure if it's for me. And I sort of kept it in my back pocket for a little while. And through those great guys, got a opportunity to come over in 2016, and I visited Cam Johnson at Ohio State and a couple of other Australian guys who were positioned in places around the States on our trip that we went on. And once you see what's over here, you see like what the opportunity is, I was like, okay, there's nothing else I want to do now, because you sort of see these other Aussie guys like living it up, and it's not just like Ohio State. Like we went to our smallest colleges as well, and like even those guys were just having a ball. So I was like, okay, I got to commit to this. So I got home, told all my coaches in Australian rules football, yeah, I'm not coming back. I'm not playing footy next year, which
Yeah.
was not very well received. I think my father probably had the biggest hard time trying to deal with that. He's like, so you're telling me you're going to get a scholarship to travel halfway around the world to kick a football? I said, that's what I'm told. He's like, it's a hoax. He said, there's no way. There's no way. This is a joke. These guys are having a laugh and it's at your expense sort of thing. So, but he sort of came on board when I sort of moved to Melbourne and sort of put together a few pieces of film and started sending it out to coaches the same way it is over here with the recruiting aspect. And then I was actually home in Wangaratta with mum and dad one morning, and I got a phone call from Coach Mason, who was going to be the recruiting and special teams analyst for UC at the time. And I had a conversation with him on the phone, but nothing FaceTime. So I was like, okay, this is a bit interesting. So I answered the FaceTime, and he's like, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, good, Mason. And this was early in the morning too. So this was like, and it was like summer for us. So my parents' busy time with fruit season and cherries and that sort of stuff. So I was already up. So we were like busy doing other stuff. And he's like, yeah, I got someone that wants to talk to you. And Coach Vic actually jumped on the line and said, Jimmy, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Want you to come over and see the University of Cincinnati and see what it's got to offer you. So we'd love to have you come over on an official visit in April. And this was like, I think February. I was like, oh, I gotta get my stuff together here. I've got to sort my life out a little bit. So, and that's sort of how it all happened. I came over in April and then committed then on my official visit, and then moved back over 2 months later and began as a freshman. And I knew nothing about the game. So from mid 2016 to now mid 2017, I was already moved over to America and into Cincinnati, and had no idea what I was doing. But I would not change anything for it. It was probably the greatest experience ever. And yeah, so Pro Kick, just to touch on them a little bit, sort of train a bunch of like all the Aussie guys coming over. So we're a big probably a pretty big tight knit group, I would say. Like, you don't have to know guys that have gone through the program, although like I went through with probably 10 or 15 that went through my year and the year after, and we're all pretty close and like we're very chummy. But now like it's almost like a big like fraternity almost. Like, you don't have to have met the Aussie guys, but you'll know of each other, and we'll trade messages back and forth, and we're all stationed everywhere in the States too. So if everyone ever needs something, or it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to be here this time, and you sort of look out for each other that way. And it's good to have that close knit network. And now there's also some of those guys in the league and doing great things outside of football as well. So it's just a really good core group. And yeah, it was a privilege to be a part of it, in all honesty. And it sort of set me up here for a life with football and then outside of football as well. So it's been really good.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously you had to, like you said, it was like a year turnaround from kind of committing to training with Pro Kick, and then obviously your commitment to Cincinnati. But, one thing is, like you said, you're a pretty big guy. I think you're like 6'4", 6'5". You played at like 230, 235 at Cincinnati. So kind of talk us through with, you call it footy, like talk through us the position that you played there, and then how, for the kicking, like how outside of that position were you using kicking as well within the gameplay? And then, just for some of the people that are going to be watching this, go over kind of what this, like your guys' rolling out style for punting in American style, the end over end. How did that transition for you guys from, a rugby style football to, an American style football?
Yeah, so like the game of like Aussie rules football is very like just kicking dominated. So like whether it's a short or long or intermediate sort of distances, it's the main mode of transport, that and the handball, of course. So it's a free flowing game, back and forth. There's no stop start like American football. So it's like you need to be able to transition from defense to offense in like the flick of a switch, basically. So and it's like you grow up, the minute you can walk, you've got a football in your hands back home. That's just how it is. Like young kids, like guys and girls now too. So it's like you got a football in your hands, and you just develop that innate ability to like kick the ball. And the ball itself is probably a little bit different. It's the the Australian rules footy is made out of like kangaroo leather, and it's a bit more oblong shaped, a bit more rounded
Mm-hmm.
at the tips, a little bit fatter. softer, it's way easier to kick. Like you'll hit rockets with a Aussie rules football, but they're also not built to pierce the wind or do anything like that. They'll get caught up in the wind. So it's a little bit different. And the position I played was like center half back, so it was like a key rebounding defense role, I guess. So like you play like that sweeper role in soccer. So anything that's coming in that's available, you'll mark and catch and run off and then turn defense into attack. So that was sort of what the position I played. But that
Yeah.
style of kicking and stuff is what makes a lot of the Australian guys come over. Like the big legs and sort of the good end over end, the pooch punt, the precision sort of kicking is what Australian rules football is. So the transition to that sort of game plan is very easy and very natural. So sort of the rollout stuff, we did a bit of it at Cincinnati, and we also did like a lot of the pooch punt stuff, and then the short roll, the pro style. It all falls under like the kicking banner, and like if you grow up swinging your leg and like doing that, it's all very like it's very quick. I don't want to say it's easy to learn because
Hmm.
it's still a hard like craft to learn. Like there's a lot that goes into it, but it you're always off on a better foot if you've already got the ability to kick, and then transitioning to the American ball from the Australian one was actually probably the hardest part because you go from a very soft oversized ball to a very pointy, hard ball. And you know as well as I do, some of those days in Cincinnati in December and late November when you get
Yeah.
those nice cold days and the wind and it's negative 15 wind chill, that ball feels like a brick. So that's probably the biggest hard part, but it's all taken in stride. So, but like, yeah, the transition was good, but you've still got to put in the work to sort of get the result. But yeah, the end over end stuff, the pooch punts and the precision, like pinning teams deep inside their 20, 10, 5, that's what most Australians probably could call their bread and butter. And now you've got guys that have just got absolutely crazy legs coming through that are now doing crazy things in the NFL as well. Like Michael Dixon just won a Super Bowl and is widely regarded as one of the best punters in the league. Just has an absolute monster leg. So yeah, it's pretty cool to be a part of that sort of like group of guys that came over, and now there's just a whole new wave of them. There's hundreds of Australians over here now. So it went from being like a real niche thing to something much bigger. So it's pretty cool to be a part of.
But I think you hit on it. Like I say to guys now, like the college guys or even high school guys that want to play in college, like the punters, and I think you would attest to this, is like it in college and then like professionally, it turns into situational. Like you got to be
Oh,
able to
100%.
situational punt. And that's like, well, like you said, like it's more accuracy. Like you guys could pin to the sidelines wherever you were. You guys could roll out. Like you guys were so mobile. It's even now, like when I train guys, like I'm teaching them if they have the potential. Let's talk through end over end. It's a good thing to have in your arsenal. If you have a day that's windy and you have it at, wind at your back, why not end over end the ball? To me, it's a little bit more forgiving than that American style punt. But you can still get really good results out of it. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like, I've had a couple of kids the same way. It's like, oh, I want to learn the end over end. I want to learn the rollout. And they're like, oh, how do you do it? And I'm like, well, don't try to learn how I do it because
Yeah.
it's 15 years of muscle memory to get
Yeah.
to learn how. So it's about what works well for them too. But like situationally, like even now, or well, definitely when I were playing, like I don't remember like hitting anything like big pro style wise, like north of the 35 or 40-yard line because you could put it inside the 10 with a good end over end ball 9 times out of 10. So that was sort of like what we would do. So and you could,
Hmm.
especially if like you were playing guys, I can vividly remember like playing Houston and Temple. They've had two of the best returners that we played. It was like, okay, how do we keep the ball away from them? Because it doesn't really matter how well you punt. They're probably going to try return something and they'll break one off. And unless you've got really good gunners, and we were lucky at Cincy, we did have really good gunners. It was a big emphasis of fix when we played. But okay, what are we going to do? All right, we're gonna roll out, and I'm gonna jag the ball as hard as I can to the right, and I'm gonna make him run and try and catch the ball. So it just the versatility and just the mobile background of kicking definitely helps the Australian guys, but I think a lot of like
Hmm.
the American kids are learning it. They've all upgraded their skills too, and some of the American kids coming out now are just phenomenal as well. So it became an Aussie thing at the start, probably to be like that super mobile, be able to move the pocket around and get teams thinking about where you're kicking. But now it's just become an everyone thing.
It just goes back to like when you transition, especially like, like for you, you were up and gone, like you committed 2 months later, you were moving across the country on your own in the States. So I couldn't imagine doing that and like moving Australia or just anywhere. Even like for me, it was uncomfortable going from the neighboring state of Indiana. I moved 2 hours away from home and I was on my own, away from family. Like, what the locker room is athletes from all over, different cultures, backgrounds. So like you're thrown right into it and you're expected to perform, right? That's the thing. And like for you, Jimmy, you were the only punter on roster. I mean, I was too behind you, but like even more, you were expected to perform on scholarship. Like, hey, let's go. And like you said, you had to learn how to punt a smaller football. That's hard, things like that. So, no, that's awesome.
Yeah, like never
Yeah.
stepping on a field either. Like you go from punting on a soccer field in Australia to like, okay, first practice in Nippert. I'm like, okay, this is what a field looks like. This is what
Yeah.
uprights look like. Like it's pretty surreal to think like, okay, this is how we learn. And then it's like you go over and like, so that like first time punting in front of a crowd other than people at practice was that first game against, who did we even play? Austin P.
Yep.
2017. That was my first game. Like I'd never
Yeah.
punted in front of a crowd, never taken like live snaps outside of practice, full rush, full everything. Like that's probably as raw as it gets, I think. But it was awesome. But and to touch on like the moving so far away from home stuff, that's only possible with like good like teammates and stuff like that. Like your family, for instance, like Greg and Carla looking after us, and like Cole's mum and dad, like Regan and Steve looking after us. Like I was lucky that I had like a good specialist group, and then other guys on the team whose parents were more than welcoming to taking a foreign boy that had never come to the States in for certain things throughout the year, just to make it feel a little bit more homey, because you do get homesick. For as many Australian guys that have come over, there's definitely some that have come over and not made it because of the homesick stuff, and they move back.
It's like you got to develop now new friendships, relationships, and like that brotherhood, the locker room, which that's like, I always say, like, I think that's the biggest thing between, like, from my experience of my first 2 years, then Fit comes in 2017. The season is what it is, but like the mad drills, all that we did in the off season, the weight room stuff, fall camp, being away for 3 weeks off campus, like at a church place that is out in the middle of nowhere in Indiana. And then 2018, 2019, you're like the success we had on the field, like the locker room, that stuff was the brotherhood was the thing that really, to me, took it up to the next step, the next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I was down at the captain's breakfast literally 2 weeks ago, and I was talking with Max Fletcher about like the locker room and like what's it like now, because now that like I feel like there's money involved with NIL and all that sort of stuff, I feel like they're losing the sort of stuff that we had. And because Max
Yeah.
asked me, he said, what was it like when you were here? I said, we would roll 30 deep around campus, 30 deep at
Yeah.
the apartment complex. Like we would never not with each other. And
Yeah.
it's probably because of like that, just the love and everything that you had in the locker room. Like that first year sucked. Going 4-8 stunk. Like, and a bunch of guys entered the portal. We were looking like we were not going to be real
Mm.
good the next year either. But it was more of a cultural shift. They brought in a few other pieces. The freshman
Hmm.
class that came in was super big on like the same thing, and that was Fick's first big recruiting class, and it sort of like built the stage for that first Big Ten win season, and then it just sort of rolled on from there, and then it became like the culture of no acceptance. If you didn't jump on board with the culture at UC and the Fick program, like you were going to be on the outer, and you weren't going to like it there. So it was all blue collar, hard work. You earned your respect in the weight room, and then everything else was outside of there.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And, and that's the thing, like if people, we think about it, we're talking about family. So I definitely want to pivot back, kind of talk us through the growing up, the childhood. You briefly already mentioned it. So I'll just, the reminder of you grew up on a massive cherry farm.
Yeah, so I would be a fourth generation, like orchardist, if you would call it. So like from a fruit growing background. My family has a large cherry farm in Wangaratta, Victoria, Australia. We grow probably around 350 tons a year of fresh produce cherries to market into
Mhm.
the local markets, international, that sort of stuff. So growing up, and we weren't that big when I grew up, but we were still reasonable and had a lot more other fruit other than cherries. But it was early wake ups, always going somewhere or doing something with mum and dad because that was just the way it was because it was a family business. My grandparents worked on it. I'm one of five. My eldest brother worked on it, and my sisters had roles in the farm while they were still living at home and then moved on with their families and so forth. But I was always there. My brother's still there now. So yeah, it's just a big family operated business. And it was definitely the work ethic distilled in me from the young age. There was never a time when outside of football season, like Australian rules football season in the winter, on the weekends in the summer, I would be working, like working with dad, working on the farm, either driving tractors, going to markets, doing the stuff that probably no one really wanted to do, but that was my role for my family to help them with their business. And I loved it, in all honesty. Like looking back at it, like in the moment, probably didn't love it as a 14 and 15-year-old growing up doing what felt like manual slave labor on the weekends. But it was definitely not that. It was, and you look back on it with like a bit more rose-colored glasses because like there was a lot of fun and a lot of memories had like with my mum and dad and my grandparents, like through the farm and doing all the farm stuff, like and just like the getting your hands dirty, like the job's not done till it's done, sort of thing. Like those were the sort of the messages. That's why the transition to the thick approach of the culture was just super easy for me, and like the weight room part, like with Brady and like the everything is earned sort of thing. So like I was like, okay, these
Yeah.
are sort of like goals and things I can get around. So it was an easy transition, but of course, like I was very close with my dad and with my parents, and to pack up and move over, especially from a family business, because I think my father definitely would have thought that okay, James is going to grow up, he's going to take over the family business, it's going to remain Smith's fruit for forever, and that sort of put a little bit of a spanner in the works in that moment. And he's thought, well, what's
Mhm.
going to happen now? Like succession plan's no longer there, and the succession plan, oh, it's always there. There's always a possibility that we'll move back to Australia and I'll do the
Yeah.
farm stuff. But definitely for the short term, he was like, okay, what's what's going to go on here? But they've all come over and visited, and they were all over for Brooks and my wedding a few years ago now. So it was
Yeah.
terrific. But yeah, you do definitely miss it. But I don't regret anything for any any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Now, when just looking back on it, was there a time like, like up to this point, I thought I was just going to stay in the family business to once I hit this, and I was like, hey, I'm going to kind of forge my own path.
Probably sophomore year, I got went to the college football awards, was a Ray Guy finalist, and I was like, and then it was like, okay, you have draft stock, like you're a touted prospect, you have pro aspirations, and I never really thought of it as that. Like I was just coming over to play a football, make best of what I could, and then everyone was like, no, you might want to start taking this a bit more seriously because you actually have potential to do something with it after college. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should start thinking about that. But then in hindsight, that was probably the worst thing for me because I think my junior year I took it way too seriously, and then had to like pull it back a little bit for the senior year to have a little bit more fun with it. I can vividly remember like just taking everything, like over analyzing everything from the punt, from everything all junior year. And I probably had less fun my junior year. Like we were still successful and I still had fun, but the
Yeah.
personal fun was definitely not there the junior year. I took it way too seriously, and then eased up a little bit the senior year and had a lot more of an enjoyable time.
And that's the big thing. Like so your second year, you're a Ray Guy finalist, which is like, that's huge. Like we were on the first episode, Dominic, he was his sophomore year as well. He
Hmm.
was a Luke Rosa finalist. So it's like that pressure then, like it's really so early in your career and that pressure just builds up. And like you said, you start kind of hearing the outside chatter of, hey, are you really like, yeah, you still got 2 more years left of college football here. And, that's important, but hey, you did that. Like not many people get that opportunity to be a finalist, top three punter in college football. You're only a sophomore in college too. Like, doors start opening, you start seeing some new communication coming in. So I could see that. But I mean, you still look back on your career and it's kind of like, I all American. I gotta assume you got to know all these, but I'm sure you broke multiple records. I gotta envision. I think you'll probably go up with Cuba as well, up onto the Ring of Honor, up in the stadium.
I highly doubt it. I highly doubt
I
it.
don't know. Just thinking about it though, I mean, you did have a very successful, like you played your role at a high level and were successful for 4 years. Wouldn't you kind of say?
Yeah, and it was
Yeah,
only to like the success that I was put in. So I was lucky enough to sort of do like the 4-time All Conference, the All
yeah,
American, the Ray Guy, and then go do the Reese Senior Bowl stuff, the Combine invite. So, but none of which would have been possible without like the position that I was put in by
yeah,
Coach Vic and Mason, like believing in someone that had never really played the game before, and then like letting them develop into sort of the leader of just the specialist with the team as well, and like that sort of stuff. So it was a really good combination of things. But yeah, I would say yes, I have, and I probably have broken some. I think I'm probably the career leading yards, like punting yards, like for a career. And I think the only thing that I don't have is Kevin Huber's got me for career average. I think that's the
yeah.
only one I don't have. But other than that, and I like to think about like it's good to look back and like, yeah, I did some cool stuff, but at the end of the day, like the team success was way more fun to me than the individual success. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you kind of look back at, and we said this earlier, like we would just like we'd go back to do anything just to be back in the locker room. If it was the mat
100%.
drills or the fall
Yep.
camp, like that's the stuff I want. And like you hit on it, like the team leader stuff, like you were the leader of the special teams group. But like the off season when we had competition stuff, like at the end of the day, like you were it was like Desmond Ritter, Sauce Gardner, Alec Pierce, like those big name position players. Like you were always one of those captain leaders that where you picked your team for, like whatever the summer lifting was, and that's how we did the point system. So like you said, Coach Brady, Coach Mason, Coach Fick, like you earned their trust. They trusted you to be a leader, which, for most people, I'm sure they're like a punter. Like he's a leader of like, why would they let a punter or even a kicker, whatever it is, anybody in special teams, why would they let them be, a leader? So like you kept you earned your keep, you worked your butt off in the weight room. Like that's the thing. We know about like the chain photos, the pump days where we were like swollen, did like the cheesy photos and stuff like that. But I definitely want to kind of hear real quick on, you talked about it, the Reese's Bowl, you're invited to that. What was your experience like, for the couple days that you're down there? Walk us through that.
Full on. So like it was weird because it was like the COVID year, so it was
Yeah.
the the combine wasn't in person, so there was a lot of emphasis put on the Reese's Bowl because it still happened. So the combine stuff was sort of all virtual, and then the Senior Bowl was happening, and I think I had the Dolphins coaching staff was my coaching staff for that game. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was good. Like you're put in with NFL coordinators, and like it's pretty stressful though because like you're expected to perform and do whatever. And I probably did not have the Senior Bowl that I wanted to have. Like, and conditions weren't terrific for the game. I think it was like 35 or 40-mile-an-hour winds that day, but it's beside the point. Like, I'm not going to make excuses for why I didn't do my job, but it was yeah, it was a great week with some great people, and like all those guys that are like touted as being like your top 10, top 20 draft picks were all there too. So it's like you're rubbing shoulders with guys that are still in the league now, signing their second or third contracts now, and it was a terrific experience though. Like it was I wish I got to do it on the non-COVID year because I think it's a little bit
Hmm.
different.
Yeah, and then so you're with the Titans kind of right after the draft. So I know you did a little bit in the CFL too. Just real quick, what was the differences? It's a 53-man roster. There's a lot more at stake, obviously, at the NFL level, but kind of what, looking back at it, compared to college, what were those little bit of differences, with Tennessee, in the CFL?
The locker room's the biggest difference straight up because it's
Yeah.
a business and a paycheck. There's no, I don't want to say there's no, like you still have friends in the locker room at the high level as
Yeah.
well, but it's you don't spend time with each other. They go there, they do their thing, they get in their cars and they go home because you don't need to see each other. You see each other enough during the day. You don't have to hang out outside of football. But yeah, definitely like that sort of stuff was the big one. But then just like the pressure side of it because you just
Hmm.
don't know. And being cut sucks. It happened plenty of times during my tenure with either in the NFL sector or the CFL sector. Going to workouts all the time was not fun. So after being
Hmm.
cut from the Titans, like you just live on a plane every
Yeah.
week, flying somewhere else, working out, getting signed, getting cut, getting signed, getting cut. Like it's terrible. I
Yeah.
love my time with the Titans. Thought I punted reasonably well. It just so happens like a bunch of people got injured that first preseason game, and it's like, yeah, you probably wasn't going to take Brett Kern's spot anyway. So it was like, okay, we got to bring in a bunch of defensive guys because we just had a couple guys get injured. See you later. And I thought I
Yeah.
punted well that first game, but I got it like as soon as I walked in the building that Monday, it's like, yep, GM wants to see. I'm like, sick, I'm getting cut. So I walk in there, yep, appreciate you coming down. Thanks. We just got to bring in a million DBs and linebackers because we had a couple guys go, I think, do season enders in that first game against Atlanta. And I was like, oh, okay,
Oh,
thank you. So you just walk in.
yeah.
That was like first thing on a Monday or a Tuesday morning after the weekend game. And you just walk straight back out, grab all your stuff, clean it out of the locker, see you later.
Yeah.
And what sucked was that was right before we were about to travel down to Tampa for like you travel to another facility and practice for the week and play the
Yeah.
preseason game. So all my stuff was already at the Titans, like at Nissan Stadium. So I needed to wait around for them to go grab my cleats and stuff because I'm like, I'm not leaving without my cleats. Like that's silly. So
Yeah.
that's one of them had to go get my cleats and then bring them back to me. So I'm just like cut, sitting around the locker room doing nothing. And everyone's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I just got cut." And it's like they're like, "Oh, really?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." It's sort of a weird but everyone that's in the business knows like it's not just that's not just a specialist unanimous thing. Like it's
Yeah.
everybody, every position. Like there's plenty of guys that just like do the rounds and just become that workout on the workout carousel. You just keep going around and around and around. I think I had 13 or 14 workouts after I got cut from the Titans. Just couldn't stick with the team,
Yeah.
even after having good workouts where guys were like, yeah, like look, there's a futures contract here for you. We want to bring you in with this, that, and the other, and just sort of never eventuates. And
Yeah.
that's probably the part I didn't like about the professional side is the lip service side. Like it's like you get like sort of like, oh yeah, we'll bring you in. We think you've done enough, this, that, and the other, and you just like never get the call and never get that opportunity. So it's like
Yeah.
you're always waiting for that opportunity. But I don't regret any of it by any stretch of the imagination. Like, but it was that was sort of the hard part of it, and I think that's where guys struggle because if you were still getting workouts, you still feel like you were, and I was still getting workouts when I stopped. Like I was like, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, how many years can I do this for? Like how many? I'm not earning money. I'm not setting myself up like for a life or a career with Brooke and a future. So I was like, I'm earning enough to just sort of keep the dream alive and keep going. Like, why would I want to keep doing that? And then played in the CFL, and then that's a whole nother story. Like that's you think like NFL, like the professionalism and everything, and like don't get me wrong, the CFL is great. I had a great time up there, but it's like it's guys are literally there, and like unless you're a long-term CFL guy that is on like big CFL money, like then there's not too many of them. Most
Mhm.
guys are there getting filmed to try get back in the league, and that's all it is. But
Yeah.
it's I had a great time up there. I love my time in Saskatchewan with Calgary, and again got traded, played, got traded. Like it's still just like a never-ending carousel of
Yeah, and I think that's one of the hardest things. You hit on it is, you're almost having to stay ready and warmed up, and you're not with a team, but you got to train as if you're with a team and be ready for a workout because you could get called, hey, Monday morning, agent can call you and be like, "Hey, Jimmy, blah blah blah. This team wants you to come and work out. You need to get on a plane and go." And like, so it's like you got to stay ready because, like you said, you had 14 different workouts. You're getting bounced around and you're having to perform to actually try to secure a spot, right? Also, like, here, let's get behind the scenes. Let's look at what my week to week looks like. You know, I'm not making money, but I've got to train every day as if I'm with the team on the 53-man roster, and I might have to travel to Baltimore for a workout and then fly back, and then I'm just waiting. And
Yeah.
not knowing what's going to happen, right?
It's the outside looking in part for like the NFL system, especially fringe, like guys that are on the fringe. It's
Yeah.
definitely like it's probably I don't know what the right word is. It's definitely like bolstered up a little bit to make it feel like it's a lot better than it actually is, because it's not terrific, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
because like I can remember that year, like I just had Christmas with the family and I get a phone call. It's like, "Oh yeah, Green Bay wants you to work out tomorrow." And I'm like, "Ugh, okay." Like you're still punting 4 times a week. You're lifting all the time. Like you've still got to keep yourself in the best nick possible for an opportunity to be there. And so I went to Green Bay 2 days after Christmas, and I tested positive for COVID there and had to stay there a full week, and didn't get my work, like didn't have a full workout. Like, so that was the worst. So that I go there, had started my workout, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you've pinged positive for COVID." I'm like, so then that happens, and then you go back, sit in the hotel, weren't allowed to work out, weren't allowed to leave, and then I had a workout 4 days later after doing nothing for 4 days, and they're like, "Now I have to perform." I'm like, "This is like I'm just setting myself up for a bad day."
Yeah. Makes no sense.
No,
It's
but
like you want to turn down the workout, but you can't.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm still in the hotel. I can't leave.
Yeah, actually, I probably shouldn't come. I've been sitting here in Green
Yeah,
Bay with COVID for 4 days. I probably should. Can we reschedule
yeah.
for the following week? So,
Laying in a bed
no.
watching reruns of Friends on a TV and then eating DoorDash. Like,
Yeah.
this is the epitome of like the NFL carousel for the COVID guys that year.
Yeah, is this what the NFL is supposed to be? Come on now. Oh, man. No, no, it's crazy, but, like you said, that I don't think anything will ever compare to the locker room and, what it was like, behind the scenes, everything that went into being successful. From the 4 months that we'd have, we trained for I remember Coach Brady would say it, but like what we had 10 or 11 guaranteed games, and you would train though for 2/3 of the year just to get those guaranteed games and hope you can make the most of them. So, like you said, the locker room is the best part. But no, Jimmy, I really want to say massive thank you for joining me on episode 2 of the Laces Out podcast. And, it was great to obviously talk about Cincinnati, how you made your way to Cincinnati, leaving family in Australia, the family business, training with Pro Kick. But it's talking about the 4 years of Cincinnati, the brotherhood that, not only we built, but the team, building that foundation to kind of lead up to, what your last 2 years were like, playing in the Chick-fil-A Bowl against Georgia. Then obviously, the big thing everybody talks about is the college football playoff. You guys, obviously played against Alabama in the first round. That was that foundation that, to me, what I believe in that we laid, to make you guys have those last 2 successful years, even though, we think about the 2019 season was awesome. So, but again, I just want to say thank you. It was great to kind of catch up, reminisce about the good times. Like you said, it's, the brotherhood is so strong that you can go and not talk for a couple months, a year, but you pick up right where you left off. And it's like, it feels like just last week we were just moving. I flew home after the Birmingham Bowl. We beat Boston College. And then just like that, it's like, all right, well, you guys take care. Enjoy break until you guys get a report back in a week for lifting, off-season lifting. And I'm going to, for me, I went and kind of pursued my NFL dream. So huge thank you again, Jimmy. I appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always awesome to talk ball and reminisce a little bit and the glory days. But no, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a terrific chat.
Laces